Update: devastated and spiraling. I am 35, found a condom wrapper in my wife's 34F car. Now what? Lots of folks asked for an update. Not a whole lot to say, but things are getting interesting. I'm shaking as I type this. Thanks to everyone in the comments and the DMs for the empathy and well wishes. A lot of good tips and advice too. Man, I would hate to piss some of you off. Some of you are vindictive. First off, I found a wrapper, not an actual used condom, so the suggestion of DNA testing was not useful. And thanks to you /Ohiduno27 for the information about getting detailed phone records from Visible. Today at work during some break time I requested a download of the phone records, but it says the request could take up to 45 days. I can't wait that long. I also drove by her work on my lunch break. I don't know why or what I expected, but her car was there as it normally is. Lots of good advice to track her: get a VAR, look at her phone without her knowing, hire an investigator, a lawyer, etc. I can't deal with this. I am taking the advice a lot of you had, and I'm just going to confront her today when she gets home. As some of you suggested, I plan to just put the condom wrapper on the table in plain sight and watch her body language. I'm so scared and nervous I am almost pissing my pants. I'm really starting to expect the worst. For me, if she cheated, there is zero chance we will stay married. Zero. I don't care what excuses or reasons or whatever she has, I am 100% done. No therapy, no counseling, nothing. I can't believe I am typing this. Makes it seem real. I can't imagine her sucking and fucking some other guy or guys. That's an image I could never get out of my head for the rest of my life. As far as assets, we don't have a lot. We have a pretty nice house that her dad helped us pay for. I'm happy to let her have it with my fair share and paying back her father. Otherwise is bullshit like 2 cars, some furniture and some decent savings that we have both contributed to, so I'm willing to split 50/50. The thought of divorce is burning a pit in my gut. I'll post again after I confront her. Either way, I think this thing comes to a conclusion tonight. Mini update, okay. Instead of sitting here pissing my pants, I wanted to just type few more things to keep busy. I'm sitting here trying to find any other reason to doubt her. The wrapper, it was fairly pristine. Not something stuck on a shoe or sitting in a parking lot. Dashcam, yes, I've checked the dashcam footage. Nothing suspicious or out of the ordinary. Commutes to work, the gym and home. Maybe a stop or two for typical errands. Grocery store cleaners. Zero suspicious activity. But she knows there is a dashcam too, so who knows? Maybe she's just being really careful. The car? Yes, we bought it used 2 years ago. It is in 2018 Infiniti Q60 Coupe. It had an extremely small back seat. I can't imagine sex back there, but who knows what motivated people might be capable of. I clean and vacuum it at least once a month, so there is zero chance it has been there the whole time. Ironically, we usually wash the cars together, but this time I happened to be doing it alone. Had she been there, this whole thing would probably be over now. Our current state of relationship, it's really strong as far as I know. She comes home, we share a glass of wine while we make dinner together, talk about our day, cuddle on the couch if we watch a show. We really have what anyone from the outside would be jealous. No feelings of distance, no hiding of phone, and no drop-off in sex, which has always been and still is great. Her gym time, with as much as she does, it is really reasonable for her to spend 2.5 hours at the gym. I've gone with her. I've seen her work out. It's pretty extensive and her body shows it. I am so proud of how great she looks and how she takes such good care of herself and encourages me and cares about our health. I've never been suspicious about it, maybe foolishly. Yes, she comes home and showers right away, but she's typically sweaty and feels gross. She doesn't avoid me when she walks in. She will typically come over and greet me with a kiss on the lips and then hit the shower. If she was just having sex with a side piece, I think she would be more discreet. We spend almost all of our time together on the weekends. Go for a jog, date nights, happy hour with friends, dinners with family, etc. She has a lot of girlfriends from work and they sometimes go out for a girls' night like once every 2 months. But again, nothing suspicious. I see the credit card charges, so I don't believe she is hiding anything. And her girlfriends are all awesome and I love hanging out with them and their husbands/BFs. I'm torn and getting nervous about talking to her tonight, but I gotta get this over with. Final update posted on my profile. Why do I feel like I overreacted to losing our baby? Our second was stillborn in March due to 2 knots in his cord. He was not planned, but we were excited. My first excited he was getting a brother. Obviously I was devastated. Delivering him knowing he was gone was awful. But I have this little voice in the back of my head telling me that I overreacted. Other people lose kids they've had for years, I shouldn't be as upset as them, right? I know that's not true, I did lose a full-term baby. I just can't figure out why I feel like that. Probably doesn't help that my mother-in-law told us a month after it happened that we needed to get over it. I'm just a mess and still get triggers into barely being able to hold it in. Kinda feel like an imposter for some reason. Edit, wow guys, you are all really kind to a total stranger. I'm exhausted at the moment, so going to sleep, but I'll make sure to respond to each of you when I'm awake again. Edit again, you guys are all suggesting cutting off my ML. If that was possible, it would have happened years ago when she tried to get me arrested saying I'd pushed her to the ground during an argument. Spoiler alert, I didn't. My fiancé's half-sister is autistic and I've been one of her workers for years. I make too much doing that and am not qualified for anything else, so I'm kinda stuck. We're also in the middle of fighting an eviction. My pregnancy was high risk, so they put me out on disability early. Benji kept trying to come early. We had no savings left at all. We moved into a 2-bedroom 10 days after I found out, and it was nearly $6,000 with security deposit plus first month's rent and a broker fee. Our shit is so messed up and social services has denied us 3 times. There's nothing but stress piled on top of trying to grieve and not fall to pieces. But yeah, point being, I'd have cut her off years ago. Edit, a few people have asked if I was comfortable telling about him. It's so nice of you to ask and I love being able to talk about him. I'll copy-paste from a comment below. He was born March 27, 24 at 4:39 in the afternoon. He was born during a really calm rain shower that made it feel like everyone was crying for him. He was 7 pounds and 20 inches long. The nurses said his eyes were light brown just like his brother's. When he was born, he had just little wispies of dark brown hair. He had super cute chipmunk cheeks, another thing that made him look so much like our first. If we had made it to my induction date 10 days from then, he probably would have been nearly the same as Alex. He was born 8 pounds 8.5 ounces and 21 inches. One of my fiancé's very best friends, who has 6 kids of her own, stayed with us the entire time through my induction and delivery and was there to raise hell when we were dealing with the shitty nurses and help get the nursing supervisor involved. She and I have never exactly gotten along, but that day she did more for me than anyone in my life has. She helped us find the funeral home for his cremation and drove us to pick up his ashes. His name is Benjamin Samuel. Our first is Alexander Dean. The middle names weren't specifically picked because of the show Supernatural, but I love that we chose those names. It's one of the first shows I watched with my now fiancé 15 years ago when we first got together. I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I have a Mudkip and Pikachu tattoo. They had a picture of a butterfly on our room while we were in the hospital. I plan to get a Butterfree tattoo and his initials on my collarbone when I can afford it. My firstborn's name and birth date were my first tattoo ever. We did get pictures with him. Alex didn't feel comfortable seeing him because we did say he didn't look like a live baby would, and we left it totally up to him. As soon as we were settled back home, he asked me to show him the pictures. He was so sweet and just grabbed onto me saying, "I'm so sorry, Mama, I'm so sorry. I for telling my best friend that I am pregnant." I, 33F, have been in a very close friendship with N, 31F, for about 8 years. We have been through a lot of things together, and for the last year and a half I've been on her side for her infertility journey. She has been through 2 inseminations and 2 rounds of IVF, all to no avail. She has PCOS and she doesn't ovulate naturally. We started with our partners at around the same time, and in the past I told her that I would start trying for a baby at the end of last summer. I asked her if I got pregnant if she wanted to know, and she said that I could tell her. A couple of months ago her second round of IVF failed and she was obviously devastated. She told me that she didn't want to talk about pregnancies when we met, and we didn't. In that time I knew I was pregnant but didn't say. 2 weeks later she called me and told me doctors had found a possible cause of why IVF wasn't working, and she was under a treatment and would try again in a month. I was very excited for her. And we set a date to meet in around 10 days. As she was the one to start talking about the topic again, I decided I would tell her I am pregnant, cause I was already 10 weeks and was going to announce it soon publicly, and I'd rather she knew by me. So when we met, we talked about her a little and then I told her. Her reaction was cold and she just said, "Oh, congratulations then." And then she said, "That was fast, huh?" I was kinda taken aback but gave her grace because of her situation. I just had expected she could be happy for me, but it was okay, so I gave her time and space and didn't talk for a month. A month later, I asked about an exam she had at work, and she answered with a 4-minute-long audio telling me she was offended that I had told her about my pregnancy when she specifically asked not to talk about that topic, and that she didn't want to know from me or see me again for a while. I was really taken aback and told her she was the first one to talk about the topic again and thought she was optimistic with the new treatment so she would be happy for me, and I was hurt about her deciding when or how we can be friends. This was a month ago and we haven't spoken since then. I think about her sometimes and worry about her, but on the other hand I am hurt that she doesn't want to be my side or my baby's, and if she does come back, I don't know if that'd be a healthy friendship. So AITA? For losing it on my fiancé for waking me up on vacation? My fiancé and I had a baby a year ago. He is an amazing sweet man and wonderful father, but since finding out I was pregnant our relationship has taken a nosedive. I had a rough pregnancy and was sick the entire time and then a rough delivery and have been struggling with PP. I get up at 4:45 most days so that I can go to the gym and be at work by 7 so I can leave work at 5 to pick her up from daycare. He handles mornings with her BC. He doesn't start work until 10 and he is WFH so this schedule makes sense. By the time I get home with her it's usually around 6:30. So by the time we play/hang out, feed, bathe and get ready for the next day, it's usually after 8. I then will sometimes work a bit more, get myself ready for the next day and then start to wind down and get ready for bed and by the time I fall asleep it's usually around 10:30/11. He usually doesn't go to bed until December 1st. I've consistently told him how exhausted I am and am met with nothing but shade. How are you exhausted? You go to bed at 8 or 9 every night. All you do is sleep, you don't even want to do anything on the weekends but rest. When I choose to rest or relax on the weekends but I get is, I'm sick of my friends always asking where you are and I have to make something up BC you aren't there, it makes me feel like I don't have a partner. We're currently on our first trip away without her for a wedding. I told him before this trip that other than the wedding events I want nothing more than to catch up on sleep. Cue the trip. He has woken me up every day. Not for any reason but just to wake me up. His reasoning this morning? Because I went to the room to wind down and relax around 7 last night so when I was still asleep at 9:30 this am he felt I had been asleep too long and was concerned so felt he had to. Obviously I didn't go to bed at 7 and he knew this because he came back at like 11 p.m. and we walked for a while last night. So this morning I absolutely lost my shit on him. This is part of why I feel so unsupported. My biggest request and because he feels I sleep too much he couldn't allow it. Heat was concerned and so was everyone else. What the actual F***K. I'm a new mom who works a very stressful corporate job 50+ hours a week. Yes, we are on vacation which means I wanted to restore and catch up, but apparently that just makes me miserable and lame because all I want to do is sleep and nap. So today we ignored each other the entire day and when he finally came back to the room, boom goes the dynamite. He said he's done. I'm already in therapy and doing what I can but BC I am the headstrong, non-emotional one. This is getting spun into him being the victim and me being the bad guy. So I told him if that's what he wants then F***K at me too. Desperately in fear for my life, W. Update number 2. After sending an email to the executives, CEO and HR at midnight last night, the VP of Operations responded at 3:30 a.m. They are taking this threat very seriously and thanked me. The employee was terminated over the phone by the branch manager earlier this morning and he has been barred from entering company property. The executives reached out to law enforcement, and law enforcement is planning on making contact with this individual. I believe we are going to have an officer on standby tomorrow. I am still debating whether I should come to work tomorrow, but we are doing everything in our power to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Update number 1. I broke the chain of command as my store manager was unwilling to act. I sent an email to all of the executives, store managers and the CEO. I, 26M, W, am a mid-level supervisor at a lumber yard/hardware store in Puget Sound. I love my job and am very close with a great deal of my colleagues. Yesterday, Friday, I was alerted by a female employee that she had been attacked by a new male coworker after he asked her for a ride home on Tuesday, after work. This new employee is a middle-aged man, Army vet with PTSD, fascination with guns, and he has been very outspoken in favor of a certain political candidate. On Tuesday after work, the man asked the victim for a ride. She agreed. Shortly after leaving, he demanded she pull into the gas station and buy him alcohol. She refused and he started screaming and immediately lunged across the seat and began choking her with both hands. She fought him off in the parking lot and when a witness came over, he exited the vehicle and left. The victim did not call the police at the time, as she expressed that he would retaliate and she was afraid for her life. The man and the victim worked together Wednesday and Thursday without interacting. Yesterday he was off, and as soon as the victim came in yesterday at 3, she brought this to my attention. We immediately documented and called the cops. An officer came down. We gave our statements to the officer. The officer asked if felony assault charges were wished to be pressed. The victim said absolutely yes. Class 2 felony. We provided the officer with the suspect's name, home address, and with text the suspect had sent to the victim. The suspect had texted the victim threatening them, and also detailing a plan to kill their ex-wife and child, hide the bodies, and make sure that everyone knew it was them, but that they'd never be caught, because they'd take a slow boat to China. We showed the officer all of this. After reaching out to all three of my superiors who had all taken the day off or were on vacation, informing them of the situation, I was immediately told to not tell anyone, and that this would have to wait until Monday. I was even instructed not to reach out to HR, and myself and the victim on at least 4 separate occasions prior to the incident expressed our fear with this particular individual to our management, and we were dismissed and told to stop overreacting. 2 weeks prior to the incident, suspect entered my vehicle without my permission, on company property while I was working, and left me a MAGA hat. I reported this to my boss and was told, pretend it never happened. I found out yesterday that he did the same thing to the victim. I went against the instructions of my managers and sent documentation to HR. I then informed a friend who no longer works with the company, who in turn informed a vast majority of my coworkers/friends in a group chat of the extreme danger this individual poses. I feel very strongly that everyone in the workplace has a right to know, and many of us are planning on calling out on Monday because we're afraid for our lives. This individual has expressed a fascination with firearms. They claimed they served in the Army and Special Forces. They have a criminal record, severe PTSD, alcohol and substance abuse issues. They are nearly destitute, living in a boarding house, and they have an estranged ex and child they don't see. It has every red flag for a possible mass shooting event. Every single red flag. I had a responsibility to make sure my coworkers were made aware. Management caught wind of this and texted me last night saying we had to keep a lid on this, and that were leaks, and these leaks had to be stopped to prevent a rumor mill from starting. I feel so helpless and unsupported, yet I was the most senior person in charge yesterday, and I felt I did the right thing by reaching out to LEO and HR. Fast forward to today, the officer reached out to both the victim and I, informing us they had not yet contacted the suspect and he was still walking the street. The officer recommended the company let this man go on Monday first thing when he arrives, and then LEO would go out to make contact with him. I am so damn scared, as is the victim and all of my colleagues who are aware of the situation. Management is completely inept, and I genuinely fear for my life if I return to work on Monday. At this point, I don't care if they fire me for missing work without PTO. What, if anything, can I do? Could I reach out to the company owner and inform them? I have already reached out to the police again today, and there is no possibility this man will be arrested before he is slated to return to work Monday. I've never been this scared before. I, 28F, catfished my partner, 29M. How do I confront him? Update. Decoy Me broke it off. He was real upset over a fake person he doesn't even know. Real Me brought his stuff over and left it in the porch and blocked his number. Thanks all. I, 28F, have been with my partner, 29M, for 1.5 years. We've had our ups and downs, and the good outweighed the bad for a long time. Due to different work schedules and locations and other circumstances, we don't live together and never have, but it's about a 30-minute commute to each other, and we have sleepovers/see each other multiple times a week. I never suspected him of cheating or lying until he started to be sporadic and sneaky about his phone, which he never was before. 2 months ago he was acting very weird, and went to the bathroom his phone on the table, and despite never snooping before, my gut told me to look, and I caught him on Tinder and texting escorts. For some terrible reason, when he cried and showed me everything and I saw that he didn't meet up with anyone, just talked to them, I forgave him. I had been working a lot at the time, and he literally was housebound for months and doesn't have many friends. I chalked it up stupidly to boredom, wanting to look I guess, and he deleted everything in front of me. Well, obviously ever since I've been wary, but things were going good until a friend said she saw him on dating apps again, so long story short, I made a fake profile, found him almost immediately and started talking to him. And he 100% fell for it and immediately made plans with Decoy Me, was ignoring my messages and talking to the decoy, cancelled our plans to fucking meet up with the decoy, saying his MOM was sleeping over. How to confront this? It's been going on for 4 days of chatting, and honestly I feel psychotic and manipulative for going to this lengths. Unsure if I should move on in silence and disappear, or be honest and confront him. We ran out of baby cribs, again. So, I work at a hotel in the front office, and one night around 10 p.m., a client storms down to the reception, visibly frustrated. He tells me that when he checked in he asked for a baby crib, and the early shift team told him, "Okay, no problem, when you go to your room you'll find it there." He went to his room, waited a little, but still nothing. He got ready to spend his day at the water park, and as he was leaving, told the reception about not receiving the baby crib. The early shift team reassured him, "Don't worry, when you come back from the water park, you'll find it waiting for you." When he came back, still nothing. He asked for the baby crib 3 more times over the span of 3 hours, and every time the phone operator told him, "Okay sir, we will send one right away," then hung up and sent a message in the front office/housekeeping WhatsApp group without checking for a response. After checking the WhatsApp group chat, to my surprise, he was telling the truth. I tried to explain to him that, unfortunately, we didn't have any baby cribs left. He started yelling, claiming that when he made the reservation he asked the phone operator multiple times about the crib because the comfort of his baby was very important to him, which made total sense to me. She had assured him we had them available and that he shouldn't worry. After speaking with the phone operator later on, she revealed that her supervisor had instructed her to tell every client we had baby cribs whether we did or not, leaving it to the front office team to deal with disappointed customers when they arrived. The client insisted he paid around €300 per night and at that price he should definitely have a baby crib. Which is true, at a 5-star resort you'd expect that, right? I tried everything. Soothing techniques, alternative solutions, even offering to convert the sofa into a bed. I offered him a free dinner for him and his wife, and complimentary spa access. But nothing worked. He explained that his baby was 10 months old and was constantly moving, making it unsafe for him to sleep on a convertible sofa. Plus, he didn't want the free dinner or spa access. He just wanted a baby crib. I suggested he head to his room while we figured something out, but he refused to budge, declaring he wouldn't leave until he got a crib or a refund. Of course, I'm not allowed to process refunds and we had no cribs left, nor did we have extra mattresses, which he probably wouldn't have accepted anyway. He only wanted a baby crib, nothing more, nothing less. The GM happened to walk by while the client was yelling, and he stepped in to fix it. But the client yelled at him and disrespected him, raising the tension even further. The GM, visibly angry, asked me if we had baby cribs available, and I told him no, we were out. The GM repeated what I said to the client and tried to offer him dinner, spa access, everything I had already offered. The client just yelled harder and made an even bigger scene. The GM then ordered 2 cribs from somewhere and promised the client they would arrive in an hour. Yet the client continued to yell, insisting he wouldn't move until he saw the crib. When the GM attempted to leave to get some rest, the client fired back, "How dare you go to sleep and leave me here waiting for my baby crib?" Frustrated, the GM sat facing the client and messaged me to stop engaging with him. He told me that if the client kept yelling, I should just tell him to take his money and leave, at almost midnight with a wife and baby in an unfamiliar city. Yeah, right. I couldn't do that. The GM allowed me to give the client a can of Coke since he said he was thirsty, but that was it. After about an hour, the cribs finally arrived. The client insisted on going upstairs with the staff delivering them, but I reassured him to head back to his room, promising him it would be there in less than 5 minutes. He finally agreed and went upstairs. Just as he entered his room, he called to tell me he hadn't received the crib yet, but as we spoke, I heard a knock on his door. Housekeeping. Now here's the kicker. I deal with situations like this all the time because failing to provide a crib after promising one is far too common where I work. I handle larger problems regularly and often find solutions. On that same night, I managed to resolve 2 out of 3 similar issues, but this one just escalated beyond my control. The housekeeping manager even wrote to the GM about the crib situation previously, yet nothing was ever done. What really stung was the GM gossiping around the hotel, telling others that I don't know how to handle client complaints, including contractors who don't even work here. They've all been coming up to me asking, "Why didn't you know how to handle that situation better? If it were me I would have done this and that and this, etc." So Reddit, what would you have done in my place? The worst humans and nastiest room I've ever seen. The guests checked in with 3 very large dogs, Saint Bernard or Malamute I believe. We typically only allow 2 dogs per room as is stated on the pet policy, but since they insisted that one of the dogs was actually a service animal, it wasn't, management gave them a pass, still requiring they pay the $100 fee for the pets. I knew this was a bad idea from the get-go as the dogs were already whining and barking at passerbys, but I had no power to really do anything about it since management was saying it was okay. My doubts were instantly confirmed the next day. The night before the guests, an older couple, dumped the dogs in the room and went out around 4 p.m., only returning after midnight and numerous calls from the night auditor telling them they needed to come back and take care of the dogs as they were barking and causing a scene well after quiet hours. Now this alone should have been grounds to ask them to leave, but the girl working is very new and inexperienced, so they were once again allowed to ride. I come in the next morning at 9 a.m. and am told about the early morning problems with the dogs. Not surprised, but not much I can do now until management wakes up. About an hour later the guests come down to the desk with the dogs and start complaining how rude the girl working the overnight was saying, and I quote, "We were having such a great night downtown and she was blowing up our phone with a horrible attitude just to report that our dogs were being dogs. Dogs that you all allow here. Dogs that we paid for to be here." I remind them that there are other guests at the hotel and if they are causing a disturbance that affects others we owe it to the guests to resolve the issue by any means necessary. They seem disgusted that I won't apologize for defending my co-workers' duty to demand they take care of their pets and storm off saying, "If you call us again today we are going to assume one of the dogs is dead." Great, lovely, why can't I just tell them to get lost now? Cut to 4 hours later, the dogs start barking again, and when I say barking I mean they were barking with such an intensity that the doors to rooms 10 rooms down were shaking. It's a weekend, so many guests are still in their rooms around this time, about 1 p.m., and calls are coming in from all over the hotel to report the issue. So I sigh and dial up the guest number to tell them that they have to come back and take the dogs out. I think repeating what they said to me over the phone would get me banned from this sub, but their verbal abuse was enough for management to finally get behind my desire to kick them out. 3 phone calls and almost 4 hours of loud barking later, they stormed back into the hotel absolutely furious. Again, won't repeat what they said to me, but they got even angrier when I told them they had to leave, threatening to call the cops. "I'll race ya," report our hotel to the news for discrimination, and to leave a nasty review about our horrible hotel. Can't wait to read it. They go up to the room and I don't see them for another hour. Over it I finally call the police and walk up with 2 officers to threaten to charge them with trespassing if they don't leave right away. They open the door and the officers escort them out without further incident, save for a few choice words. The mess. I immediately noticed the foul odor when the door was opened when I went up with the officers to escort the guests out, but nothing could have prepared me for how bad it was when I walked in. Think raw sewage from an open sewer, but 10x more intense. There were large piles of soft dog poop everywhere on the floor, and any area that wasn't covered in a pile of manure was heavily stained by pee. The bed was a total loss, as well as there was urine stains everywhere and what looked more like human poop and vomit as well. The drapes and curtains were all torn to shreds, a lamp was torn off the wall, the TV would not turn on, the microwave door was smashed and the cooktop was left on, perhaps intentionally. There were also cigarette butts and half-empty beer cans left everywhere, and the smell had a slight hint of weed, although it was overpowered by the smell of raw sewage. I could only spend about 2 minutes in the room before the smell and the mess started getting to me and I felt sick to my stomach. We were able to get an additional $1,000 of the guests before they canceled their credit card. Although it cost well north of $5,000 to make the room habitable again. In total they were probably only in the room for 24 hours, I can't even imagine the damage if they were allowed to stay for the full week they had booked. Edit, accidentally cut the part about the repair cost from the draft. It's a Monday evening, people are starting to trickle in for check-ins. One guy comes and gives me his ID and card, and his card declines. He says maybe it's not reading the chip right, try again, he's got money. I try again, it declines again. He suggests swiping the card, but I explain that it won't allow me to swipe a card that has a working chip. He claims the chip isn't working, and I tell him the chip looks like it's reading just fine, it's just declining. I get an error message if it wasn't reading the chip. He tries to talk me into manually entering the card number, and I tell him I can't process the card securely that way, so I have to have a functioning card. If there was actually an issue with the card other than it declining, I probably would have tried that, but he was setting off alarm bells, so I wasn't playing his game. He asked if he could do just the deposit on his card, but that declined too. He was very argumentative, and trying to insinuate that the problem was the card reader, but I wasn't buying it. He asked me to try it on another card reader, and I brought it over to the other desk computer only to remember that that computer had been stripped partially for parts to fix the main computer. I apologized and said I wouldn't be able to run it on the other machine. He got pissy about that too, but there wasn't much that could be done, and you can't just switch the credit card terminal from one to the other willy-nilly. He left to go figure his shit out or something, and another guest stepped up to check in. I recognized him but didn't know him by name. I asked for his ID and his card. He put his debit card down, then pulled off his lanyard with some state government or something ID, nothing I was familiar with, and tried to hand me that. I apologized and said it wasn't a form of ID I was familiar with, and asked if he had a driver's license or a state ID card. He argued and said he'd used the ID he showed me to vote and that he didn't have his regular ID. Now, I was suspicious of this claim partially because he'd driven here and also because his wallet was open on the desk and I could see the back of what appeared to be a driver's license or state ID card. He kept arguing that his ID was fine, then tried to show me his confirmation email and pulled the classic, "But I'm here every year, I've given my ID in the past." He was working on my last nerve, and I had to fight the urge to say something snippy like, "Not this year if you don't give me an ID." He kept trying to show me his confirmation email and I was about to snap. But I kept my cool and told him it says online that we require an ID and I wouldn't be checking him in without one. At that point, behind him another guest was behind him in line, and the guy whose card was declining was behind her. The guy relented, got an impish look on his face and pulled the ID I'd seen in his wallet out and handed it over. And I saw red. Why it was this point that I broke it I don't know, but that's where I broke. But only on the inside. I maintained my composure externally, but you know how inside everyone is two wolves? No, not everyone has that, and if you have wolves inside you, you probably need a doctor. But inside I was desperately fighting the urge to refuse the man's service and tell him to get lost. He wasted my time and it would have been justified, but it might have ended up just being a bigger fight. But he fucked around and I still wanted him to find out. So I didn't refuse him service, but I did call him out right to his face because fuck him. More or less. Meat, I don't know why you wasted your own time like that, sir. You wasted your time, you wasted my time, and you could have been checked in by now. And he gave some limp reasons and still had the same sort of impish look on his face, but I just kept shutting him down, saying all he'd done was waste our time, and the time of the other people in line. He mentioned again that he stayed every year, and again I had to fight myself to keep from snapping at him and saying, let's make this the last year. Outside of calling him out, I kept my answers to his questions brief and got him checked in as fast as I could to get him the fuck out of my face. Once he was gone, the guest behind him came up, she just needed to get her key redone. I owe her a great debt because I was starting to worry maybe I'm just an asshole, but she completely validated my feelings with a what was that guy's problem? All I could do was shrug. Then Mr. Declined Card stepped back up and tried to hand me a Cash App card. I apologized and said we don't take Cash App, we require a credit card or major bank debit card. He tried to argue that it is a major bank debit card and I told him no, it's a Cash App card. He tried to argue again and I told him very bluntly I wasn't taking his Cash App card, I need a credit card or major bank debit card like it says on the website. He got huffy and asked to cancel his reservation. Of course it was booked through the third party, so I told him he had to call them. He got very whiny and said it wasn't his fault my card reader didn't work. I told him it had worked just fine for every other card, so I didn't think that was the problem. He stormed off and I tried to take a second to calm down, but a moment later as he drove past the office he laid on the horn of his car like a child rather than the 40-year-old man he was. It made me really glad he wasn't staying here. A little while later I got an email from the third party he'd booked through asking to cancel. In the message he claimed I was rude and refused to run his card on a different credit card terminal when mine didn't work. The rudeness was debatable, but the card thing was just a straight-up lie. Once again I fought my baser instincts to just fuck with the guy and deny the cancellation, but his card wasn't going through anyway, so all that would do was increase the likelihood I'd have to deal with him again, and that I didn't want, so I approved the cancellation and added him to the DNR and was done with it. I want to go home. I have to start this post off with a little trigger warning due to the graphic nature of conversation. There is talks of death and Una living with an OD and a pew-pew. Sorry, I am keeping it internet safe because it's exactly what the subreddit's TOS rules are when speaking of these things. So about a couple months ago we had our annual city fair where people from all over the state and surrounding states come to work and participate in. It is a big deal since it is something that my city has celebrated since before I was even born, and it usually lasts about a week. Well, our parking lot is typically packed with cars, trailers, and semi-trucks during this time, and no, we do not keep track of license plate numbers because our facility aka management says that if we do then we are responsible for what happens in the event someone's car get broken into. If you've read any of my previous posts then you would know that not only do we not have security but we also don't have outside cameras. Something I am 100% against, but that is a different rant. So, during these busy seasons we see an increase of car break-ins, and there is not much myself as a female NA that works alone is willing to risk when dealing with the houseless people and their outside activities. Obviously, once the event is over the guests leave and the parking lot becomes bare, however we still do house temp workers that sometimes can stay for over a month or two. Well, there was this super nice car, a stripper name car with dark tinted windows, and an out-of-state plate that just stayed parked in the same spot since this event was happening and then for about a week or two after it ended. I didn't think much of it since it is a nicer sedan, looks to be in great condition, somewhat of a wealthy person's vehicle. Plus, I work the NA so I typically don't see most of the guests, so I just assumed it belonged to one of them. One morning, after I left my shift, the maintenance person witnessed a houseless woman going into the super nice car, so he went over and chased her off. He said she got away with a small box of something but he wasn't sure exactly what it was. He told me that he stopped because the odor coming from the sedan was unbearable. He called for our manager before he approached it. That is when they saw a woman in the back seat with a bunch of RX pills around her and a hand pew-pew on the floor of the car. Of course they called the police and a coroner came out. My manager said that the coroner ruled it as a self-afflicted Una living, and when they ran the plates they were able to get the woman's name. She was not a guest here. My guess is that she parked there, got into the back seat, did her thing and went to sleep forever. Very sad. It makes me think of her poor family and how worried they must have been for weeks just to find out that she was dead in a place hundreds of miles away. It messed up the maintenance person and my manager up so bad that maintenance took some time off and my manager quit. It also makes me extra mad at corporate because if we had security or even cameras then we would have been able to know how long this woman was there for and probably gotten to her quicker. Regardless of her doing what she felt like she had to do, she may not have been there as long. Not only that, I understand the houseless people are desperate, but to steal from dead person is wild to me. There is no way the houseless person didn't realize once they got into the vehicle, but that's not who my anger is directed at. It is corporate for being such cheap pieces of shit that they won't do anything to ensure the safety of us or our guests. We live in a city that is one of the top 5 most dangerous in the entire state and they truly don't give a fuck. Guests have been asking about it, there was a social media post and a news article about it and it is like it was swept under a rug. We aren't allowed to say anything to anyone about it. Shit, we even got a really bad score and review about the situation from a guest staying here when the body was recovered. Still only silence from corporate. Unfucking believable. P.S. I have actively been looking to get into another job. As much as I love the perks, I cannot work for a company that doesn't give two shits about us. I posted in this sub a couple days ago to complain about the opening experience we've had, and I've learned some more things so I had to share lol. 110 rooms opened in October. First weekend we lost like 6/7 people. Mostly housekeepers because our entire fully booked hotel checked out on that Sunday. It's been 20 days and they've only hired 2 new people, stating that the onboarding process takes a long time. My onboarding process took literally 1 day. Faced with tears of joy, I had my interview in August and the next day was orientation and we started working the day after that. So 3 days is a long onboarding process? Interesting. And they can't say we don't have people applying because I give out like 4 cards a day. I know people are applying. Our HKs, the few we have, get bent over backwards and fucked, but they're sticking with it in hopes it gets better. One of them quit the other day and outed our AGM for going to get drugs at the building next to us. Skull, is that true? I can't be 100% because I'm pretty sure that HK was also doing drugs, so she could have been just saying shit. But I heard from someone else that our AGM only got AGM because she knew someone and was not. Update mid-type. One of the new HKs I think just quit rolling on the floor laughing. She came to me crying asking to sign her key back in. RIP. Update. Apparently she's fine. She left out of here not crying and seemingly not upset or anything, so it. Alright, back to AGM shit talking. She doesn't seem to be qualified to be an AGM, so that tracks. She doesn't seem to have any clue what she's doing. Someone also told me that there was a meeting about drinking on the job, and guess what? Our AGM comes in stacked different cups and drinks, so that might also track. Our night auditor had to call her to get some clarification one night, prob about 12:30. She told the night audit she was out at the bar and had just ordered her drinks and was going to enjoy her night. The next day she put her phone on D&D and night audit had no recourse, no one to get into contact with when she had an issue and needed help something. They are no longer on speaking terms. Also, I put in a request off for November 1st weekend about 2 months ago. Figured all would be good. I got it in 1/6 of a year ago. Plans were made, hotel in line, didn't find out they denied my request until I checked the new schedule. They gave me off the 1st and the 3rd but have me working the 2nd and no one to cover that shift because the other 2 front desk people are working on those days. So, I had to cancel my plans, put my life on hold for this shitty management team, all for $13 an hour? News flash: $13 an hour is the new $7.25. It's really like they did it on purpose too. In my request off sheet, I explicitly told them I was planning to go out of town for those days, and right in the middle of it, they throw in that day just to make sure I couldn't. I could deal with having my plans cut short by a day. 2 days off in a row would've worked for me, but no, I'll go fuck myself. This weekend we've had no management in the building whatsoever. Not Saturday, not Sunday. I don't think it would be a big issue if we had people that were actually trained. FD has no idea what we're doing because we have not been trained properly. Our exec HK asked me to fold pillowcases since they're so behind and have been since we opened. I obliged because I'm a nice guy, but next time I get asked to fold on my 3 to 11, I'm going to say no. That's now what I'm getting paid to do. I shouldn't be asked to take on an additional workload and not be compensated for the additional work I'm doing. I get $13 an hour to stay at the front desk and check guests in and handle any issues they have. If they want me to take on another workload during my shift, I expect to get my $13 for watching the FD and my $13 for folding laundry. If it takes me 2 hours to fold pillowcases, that's an extra $26 that should be added to my fucking check. Am I wrong for thinking this? It's obviously a naive viewpoint and I don't expect them to do this, In fact, I'm almost entirely sure they're gonna tell me to basically go fuck myself, in which case I'll let them know to cover the rest of my 3-11s if they wanna act like that. Deny my request off, don't let me know that they aren't willing to accommodate my request off, no apology, no heads up, just a newly posted schedule. I wasn't able to afford to go anyway, but the point still stands. Anyway, my rambling is over, just needed to share with literally anyone lol. Edit? Oh, and to add insult to injury, we have to wear suits, uniform. They provided me two, which is awesome, however they don't fit. Pants aren't hemmed, so I keep them tucked in my socks and just pull it out enough to make it seem like they aren't 6 inches too long. My jacket is like 3 sizes too big and covers my knuckles if I keep my arms hanging down by my sides. I told them about these issues, the pants are fine, I can deal with it, but the jackets make me feel so self-conscious. It's like I walked into Goodwill and just grabbed whatever they had. They told me they would fix it. I asked my AGM and she said, well, the GM is fine with the way it fits. So I told another AGM from a different location helping us on our opening days, and she talked to the GM for me, and the GM told her that she'd order me new ones because she didn't want me to feel uncomfortable, being that I'm the one that had to wear it. That was 3 weeks ago. These MFS hate us. Apologies if this isn't the right place, but I hope that since it all comes from the background of having worked front desk, it would be okay. Anyway, prefacing this by saying that I worked housekeeping for a year at a Stilton, and front desk for a year and a half. I know the hospitality song and dance and try to make things as painless as possible. This year I was invited to a wedding back home, all very exciting stuff. My partner and I were traveling across country, and since we didn't want to stay with my mother for many reasons, we decided to get a hotel for one night before we'd be staying at an Airbnb a relative booked. All well and good, with the only big mistake being that I booked third party. I knew I was setting myself up for some amount of grief, but being that I have a limited budget and anxiety about paying for things last minute, i.e., at hotel checkout, schmooking was the only option. I had to set up a payment plan and make sure my dumb nerves were settled. This hotel is on the mid to high end. No brand affiliation, but I don't believe it was independent either. It was part of a group of hotels in the area. The first time this proved to be a problem was when partner and I decided to fly out a day early and add a night to our stay, meaning I had to book a second night through schmooking on a separate reservation. This also meant that rather than arriving at a reasonable hour, we'd be getting in close to midnight. So, I decided to call the hotel and work some things out. Me, hi there, I wanted to check on my reservations and make a notation. Last name is Striferus, first name Ash. FDA? Great, cool, I have 2 reservations here for you. Me, wonderful. I was wondering if you could make a note on my reservation that I am going to be doing a back-to-back stay, so that housekeeping is aware. I'll be sure to drop down and grab my key. FDA, great. I'll make a note there. Anything else? Me? Well, it looks like our flight will be getting in around midnight. I know y'all tend to run audit around that time, so I wanted to check that that would be okay. FDA. No problem, we man the desk 24 hours a day, so that'll be fine. Me? Well, not quite what I was asking, but sounds great. Look forward to being there. Convinced that everything was fine, I let myself relax for the next few weeks. And after several painless flights, including one that landed early, we arrived. We headed up to the front door, only to find it locked. No big deal. It's downtown and I know there's security concerns. The problem was that there was no sign to indicate that there were hours that the hotel had the doors locked, nor had the FDA I spoke to informed me of this. Thankfully, after exhausted squinting, we found a button that presumably would alert the front desk. We waited 2 minutes with no results. Pressed it again. Nothing. And unfortunately, the front desk was positioned in a way that they couldn't see us. Fine. All good. I call the hotel, but of course I have to go through 15 different menus. Meanwhile, it's dark and cold and I'm tired from flights. I finally get through to someone who sounds absolutely annoyed at my audacity for needing to get inside the hotel. No apology or anything, not even when she hung up and came to the door. It's late enough where I can't tell if she's NA and tired from just waking up, or night shift and tired from a long day. But that's okay. I'm tired, she's tired. We'll just make this quick and go to bed. Right? No, of course not. FDA too. So we sold your room, so we went ahead and gave you a complimentary upgrade. Me, oh well, that's cool. Thank you. Just checking on how that will impact my back-to-back stay. FDA too. What back-to-back stay? Me, I called a few weeks ago and requested a note be placed about my back-to-back. FDA too. Oh well. It's not on there. Me. Right. Okay. Well, we do have a back-to-back. Is that going to be okay? FDA too. We might not have that room available, so you might need to move. Check back in the morning. Me. Okay. Great. That's fine. Obviously I'm annoyed because an upgrade isn't much of an upgrade if I'm going to be inconvenienced, but I've also been in an oversell situation before and know that hey, sometimes it is what it is. I smile through it, thank her and finish checking in. FDA 2, great. You're all cleared. Here's your room key. Your room number is full number. Now, I will admit that it's been several years since I've worked in hospitality, but I distinctly recall the core tenets of my training. The big one is, of course, never say a room number out loud even if you think the lobby is empty. Even if they ask. You never do that. I think I stared at her, baffled, for a bit before finally retreating to get some sleep. My partner, who also worked at the same hotel as me, housekeeping, never front desk, waited until we got into the elevator to turn to me and say, "Did she just say the number out loud?" I just had to nod and sigh. The good news is that they were able to accommodate us in the room for our second night. The view from our upgrade was beautiful and our trip was otherwise wonderful. The bad news was that there were only 2 outlets in the room, and neither of them were on my side of the bed, but what can you do? So, I've been dealing with a ridiculous issue at work. I work nights at a hotel, and in the mornings I've always been responsible for a portion of breakfast. Historically I've always done the stuff that needed cooked in the oven and put out some of the dry staples. The breakfast attendant would come about 30 minutes before breakfast was due to start, and she would do the portion that needed microwaved and also put out the finishing touch stuff, silverware, serving utensils, bowls and plates. So honestly we shared the actual labor pretty evenly, with the parts she got being the parts one found annoying and difficult. Mostly the breakfast crew has had a limited English vocabulary, but I've always really tried to use translate apps and all that to talk to them anyway. So mostly I don't think they have had an issue with this, but they usually don't try to reach out in return, so maybe they all hate me and I'm just deluding myself. But that's not the issue at all. So a few weeks ago they started saying that we should transition to cooking everything in the microwave, to not using the big oven. With the claim that it would be quicker and more efficient and save money. Try cooking 80 sausage links in a microwave when the instructions call for no more than 10 in there at a time, and you can't fit more than that anyway, not to mention the egg patties that are already half plastic getting turned into rubber. I of course disagreed and told them that from the beginning I am very against cooking meat in a microwave. The sausage may technically be fully cooked, but it's not cooked by any standard you'd apply. And the bacon they've been using lately is a complete disgrace, and I don't even like bacon. But the now former general manager, FGM for short, said she would have it all written out and it would be super easy and blah blah. I asked her to make sure she wrote down what I was supposed to do and what the BA were supposed to do, so I wasn't leaving them in the lurch. And she nodded and said she'd write up a whole thing. 1 week later I arrived to this poster in my inbox and on the door. The next day FGM quit. So I said okay, obviously this no longer applies, and kept doing breakfast as usual. Except, apparently NGM, new general manager, decided this was a great idea, and the owner was convinced this was going to save money. So, BA stopped showing up until breakfast was due to start. And I'm floundering trying to get everything done, even the stuff I don't know how to do like microwave eggs and oatmeal. The only part one was comfortable with was the meat I had cooking in the oven. That I was good with. So this goes on for a week or so, me doing whatever I can to get most of the breakfast stuff done before the BA arrive, and still using the oven for the meat. I understood that they had suggested we use the microwave for it. But I didn't think that meant I couldn't do it in the oven still. No one had talked to me or complained about the situation or asked me to stop using the oven. Until today when we all get a group text from NGM with owner in chat, saying that the oven was off limits and that night audit, they said night audit, but since they were just meaning me. It was pretty passive-aggressive to do this as a group text that's solely about my actions. And I said I didn't understand the purpose of the rule, and that if I wasn't allowed to cook in the oven then the BA was going to need to show up early to help since I wasn't physically or morally, not literally, but I basically said I was constitutionally unable to cook sausage in a microwave. And they just gave me a bunch of BS about how it would save money and time and that that's the brand standard, which was FGM's favorite phrase, but it just means bare minimum we must comply with. It doesn't mean we have to do it that way. And I was trying to keep from throwing a fit like a kid and quitting my job over a microwave. And I managed pretty well. But I just got into work a bit ago and I see these. None of these are more than 10 feet apart. The first 2 are actually facing each other about 6 feet apart, and the next is on the door as you turn the corner from them. And the next is taped to my computer monitor. I know this was a lot, but I needed to vent. Do you think I can rip these down? Should I quit? I'm just not gonna make breakfast tomorrow, I'll take them right up, but this is petty and directed at me in particular without anyone speaking to me about the issue. These are in the employee kitchen, the place where you have to be to clock in. So these are for everyone to see, but specifically calling me out. I'm just so insane right now. Any advice? Empathy, personal experience similar? Images will be attached or described if post is approved. Update. So I totally got fired for telling my boss I thought the signs were rude and that it was clearly a sign she was annoyed with me. But that we were both adults that could be annoyed with each other and move on. I sent this to her as a text because we've always texted, but she apparently decided that I was making the situation personal, and said I had been gossiping and wouldn't follow rules or answer the phone. None of that is true other than maybe the gossiping, but that's only if you count bitching about this situation and real-life stuff that involves me as bitching. Well, firstly, hello. This is my first time ever posting anywhere, but I feel like even though I've dealt with so much in the past couple of years as a hospitality worker, especially as a night auditor and manager, I need to share this. In the past, I've handled many incidents as a receptionist for late check-ins and check-outs, voluntary or otherwise. However, tonight was a night I will always dread, and I've dealt with some pretty annoying stags and even crazy knife-wielding strippers. Moving on to tonight, I expected 3 no-shows, but instead I had 2 late arrivals. Little did I know that one of the arrivals, who had booked a queen-sized bed, arrived as a single woman with 5 children, ages 2, 4, 9, 11, and 12, after a flight on an extremely windy day that should have been cancelled. I opened the locked doors and was greeted with nothing but grief and trouble. I understood her frustration, but I was confused and tried to ask about the situation. Remember, this was past 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had to accommodate 6 people. She shouted at me as if I had asked the most offensive question. Apparently, she hadn't intended to bring all these kids, her kids, and she insisted that I just give her the keys because she had been through enough. I tried to explain that I understood her situation, but I needed to know what had happened to help her. I couldn't allow 6 people into a small hotel room with 6 to 8 bags of luggage and a pram. When I attempted to explain why I couldn't give her one room for all of them, she interrupted me with a dismissive, "Why not?" I tried to explain that it was a health and safety issue. No hotel would allow multiple people, especially children, to sleep on the floor. Here I was, a concerned receptionist trying to communicate with an out-of-control parent who claimed to be pregnant, surrounded by 5 kids and a bunch of luggage, and refusing to talk rationally. If I kicked her out, I'd be the asshole. If I called the police because of her threats, I'd still be the asshole, probably receiving little help from the operator or the officers if they showed up. If I left her to sleep in the lobby, I'd be the asshole who wouldn't deal with an upset guest. Not only would I upset my boss, but I'd also have other guests seeing multiple kids sleeping in the lobby and thinking poorly of me, the hotel, and the staff. Regardless of what I did, I knew I would get bad reviews claiming I was the asshole who tried to kick out a mother and her 5 kids from a hotel that wouldn't accommodate them without extra charges. Thankfully, I didn't care and called my boss after stepping away from the situation to ask how he wanted me to proceed, as this is his business and no one wants to deal with such a situation. Fortunately for her, she was given a complimentary room. But when I called her over to share the good news, you won't believe it. Rather than any appreciation, she called me an asshole, claiming I thought she was trying to cheat the hotel instead of recognizing that I was a concerned receptionist and father trying to accommodate her. I swear I did my best today, yet tonight was a night I wish had never happened. I would rather deal with alcoholics and drug addicts than face troublesome situations involving parents and children. TLDR. A receptionist gets a surprise when a guest who booked a queen bed at 2 a.m. arrives as one adult with 5 children. The guest complains when the concerned receptionist inquires about the situation and tries to explain why accommodating them is an issue. Despite the grief, the woman receives a complimentary room but still views the receptionist as the bad guy. I never thought I'd be in the hospitality role for so long, but surprisingly I've enjoyed it. However, it's incredibly hard and people often don't consider the server, receptionist, or anyone who is just trying to help. Some genuinely care and hope you have a good day, others are just trying to get by. No one who is helping you deserves to have so much hate thrown at them. Thanks for reading my probably one and only post. Rude customer debacle. I work cross shifts in a small town motel. One night last week while I was working on the night audit shift, I had this rude guest. Now being in this business for 3 years and working in customer service for well over 10, I have had my fair share of rude people, but I am actually excited to finally have a story for this sub. Back to the story. So I'm working the night shift and it's right around 9 p.m. I've just ordered food from the restaurant and sit down to quickly do some counts for night audit when I have 3 guests walk in, an old man with a cane OM, a younger woman around my age that I assume is their daughter D, and a rude white-haired woman, RW. They walk tiredly to the front desk and I greet them. RW stands next to my front desk and taps expectantly on the counter. I again greet her and explain that I was in the middle of counting and need just a few more moments to finish up and not lose count. RW huffs and rolls her eyes. I finish counting what I needed to and get up from my office to go and stand at front desk. Check-in proceeds fairly normally with a bit of attitude that I chalk up to them being tired. I then ask for their ID and CC, and RW basically throws her CC and ID at me and grumps to her husband about it taking a while. OM and D sit down in my lobby waiting while I check in RW. She signs the proper paperwork and it goes smoothly for the rest of the check-in. RW asks when the restaurant closes and I tell her 10 p.m., so her and the two others head off to eat before it closes. Around 10:30 or so, my restaurant is closed and I say goodnight to the kitchen staff. My night watchman heads out to drive one of the cooks home while I hold down the fort, and this is when I see RW and her family again. RW comes out of the restaurant walking down the hallway towards front desk. RW, where's my room? Me, oh here let me show you on the map. I show her our map and point out her room, then direct her while pointing down the hallway. Being a motel, there are 2 doors in the room, one to the hallway and one to outdoors. RW grabs her purse and heads off to the room, which is just around the corner. From my desk I can almost even see their hallway door. 2 seconds later, RW comes back to front desk and throws her key card at me. RW, this isn't working. Me, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, let me fix that. And I reprogram the key card, and RW heads off down the hall again, dragging her husband and daughter with her again. And again 2 seconds later she comes back and throws her key card at me. RW, it still isn't working. This is ridiculous. Me, oh? I guess it must be an issue with the card itself, no problem. Let me get you a new card. Again I reprogram her card and hand it back to her, and again she walks off, dragging her husband and daughter, only to come back a second later even more frustrated. RW, isn't there anything else you can do? My husband just had a stroke and we want to go to bed. Just give us a different room. Me, well, you can just try the outdoor access to see if that key works. RW, I don't want to go outside. Me, you could also give my night watchman a couple of minutes and he can try getting you into the room. RW, how long will he be? Me, shouldn't be much longer as he just headed out to drive someone home. RW, I don't feel like waiting anymore. Me, well, as I've said, we are fully booked, but I do have an extra room we keep just in case of situations like this. And I start the process of getting set in the new room. RW, good. As long as it's not far down the hall. Me, again, we are fully booked, and unfortunately the only room I have left is the last room on the end. You can either get this new room, go into your current room from the outside, or wait for my night watchman. She huffs angrily at me, and her husband and daughter again sit down in my lobby. RW paces back and forth complaining about how she wants to go to bed and how ridiculous all of this is over one room. I continue to do my own work during this as I assumed they want to wait for my night watchman. RW, how long will he be? The night watch. Me, shouldn't be much longer. He's never gone very long. RW, can't you call him? At this point I want nothing more than to get her and her family out of my lobby so I can keep working in peace, so I text my night watch to let him know the situation. He comes back in and tells me RW was outside near the door to her room when he came up, so he let her in through the outside door. I thank him and go back to my work. 5 minutes later RW storms back out to front desk. RW, what are we supposed to do in the morning for breakfast? How are we supposed to get back in the room? Me, the restaurant opens back up at 8, and by then all the office staff and housekeeping will be in, so they'll be able to get you into your room, not a problem. She complains under her breath and again heads towards her room. 5 minutes later RW comes back into my lobby, and at this point I haven't been more done with someone. RW, I have stayed here so many times. The last time I've stayed I had no issues. So, I think because of this whole debacle we should get compensation. Me, I am not allowed to compensate a room, unfortunately. That would have to be run by the manager. Therefore you're going to have to talk to him in the morning if you want anything kind of discount. RW, are you serious? You can't give me anything? This place is ridiculous. And before I can answer again she heads off to her room. And that was thankfully the last time I saw her that night. I remembered the story because I saw RW again last night, and the first thing she said to me this time was, even after the last debacle we decided to give you guys one more chance. But I actually had no issues this time. Thanks for reading. I love spending my nights on this sub and healing my soul commiserating with you all. This probably isn't my wildest story, but it is my weirdest. Warning, this is pretty long. I was the GM of a hotel with an economy flag, but in terms of amenities/offerings, we were between economy and limited service. I worked out of B shift because, when it came to group bookings etc., I could handle those calls offsite. I also ran the hotel's bar, which naturally, was open during B shift hours. We had an older couple who stayed for, I think, 4 nights. The lady of the two was pretty demanding. I was actually of half a mind to choose not to rent to the couple, but it was during the off-season, we weren't going to sell out anyway, so I went ahead and rented to them. They eventually check out without issue. She personally thanks me for seeing to their rather long list of demands. The evening after checking out, they call the hotel and the following conversation ensues. Guest: this is, name omitted, and I checked out from room 117, room number deliberately changed. Did you happen to find a large jar of skin cream when you cleaned the room today? Me: I don't clean rooms generally. The housekeepers are all gone for the day and no such item was turned into me. They probably threw it away if they did find. Guest: how can you just throw stuff away? Me: people leave toiletries behind all the time. We only keep items if they're above a certain value because we mail them back at no charge. Some jar of skin cream would probably have been thrown away. Guest: it's very expensive skin cream. Me, inwardly sighing, please hold and I'll check the housekeeping cart for it. If it's not there, then I'll call the housekeeper. Needless to say, I didn't find it, so I called the housekeeper. Me: here's the weirdest question I've ever asked you. Do you remember throwing away a large jar of skin cream from room 117? If not, did you take it home? That normally wouldn't be a problem if you did, but the guest wants it back. Okay, skin cream? No. I don't think I threw away anything like that and I didn't take anything home. Why would I take home skin cream? Me: I don't know what you use. I wouldn't have cared if you did. Like how if a guest leaves beer or something, I wouldn't care if you took that. HK: well, I don't remember throwing away any skin cream and I definitely didn't take it. Me: damn it. This lady's losing her shit on me. HK: it's probably drugs. Me: what? HK: there's probably drugs in that jar. That's why she wants it. Me: doubtful. I think this lady's on drugs, but of the prescribed variety. I call the guest back. Me: the housekeeper doesn't remember throwing away any skin cream jar and definitely didn't take it. Guest: can you check the garbage for it? Me: for skin cream? No. Guest: okay, I'll be honest. There's expensive jewelry in that jar. Several thousand worth. I keep it in there because nobody would think anything important is in it. Me: your plan seems to have succeeded too well. Not to judge, but why are you traveling with thousands of dollars of jewelry in the first place? Guest: I'm worried something will happen to it and don't like leaving it at home. Me: something seems to have happened to it. Guest: yeah, your housekeeper stole it. Me: what? More likely threw it away. Guest: you haven't heard the last of this. An hour later, I get a call from the cops. Officer, we have a call from one of your guests saying that your hotel stole thousands of dollars in jewelry. Me: we did no such thing. The lady says she forgot her jewelry because she keeps it in a skin cream container and she forgot to pack it. Officer, yeah, she says your housekeeper found it and stole it. Me: I think she threw the container away. I don't believe she'd steal it, and even if she had stolen it, I don't think she'd have answered her phone and talked to me earlier. I'd probably never see her again. Officer, it would clear things up if you could find it. Me: yeah, I kind of thought it would come to this. I guess I'll go dumpster diving. Needless to say, I didn't find it in the dumpster. I called the officer and updated them and then called the guest. Me: there's no skin cream jar in the dumpster. The hotel doesn't have it and nor does our housekeeper. Guest: what's your housekeeper's name? Me: you called the police? Get an attorney and have them figure out my housekeeper's name. I'm done with you. Guest: you stole it. Me: what? I don't know where you get your logic from, but I'm on camera dumpster diving. I left the hotel empty-handed and came back in empty-handed. It's all on camera. Also, I wouldn't have known there's anything of value if you hadn't told me. Guest: this won't be the end of this. Me: I didn't suspect it would. Any further correspondence with us will need to come from an attorney. Goodbye. Naturally, she calls the police again and complains to the franchisor. I get the complaint with the franchisor removed on the grounds that it's legal in nature. I explain to the police that this is why we have guests sign that the hotel isn't responsible for lost/damaged items. As far as I know, no jewelry ever actually existed. About 5 days later, I get a call from the guest that the husband actually put one of the bags in the back of their SUV, where I guess it wouldn't normally have been put. The guest thanks me for my efforts. She says she already called the police to let them know she found her jewelry. Guest: by the way, we'll be back in the area next month and... Me: let me stop you there. You don't have to stay home, but you can't stay here. Also, start renting a safety deposit box. Good day to you.